Lo que yo vi cuando tenía 8, 9, 9
I sketched
años.
this image that has always been etched in my head since day one, along with my mother, grandmother, and my brother, who were all there as well.
Mi mamá, mi abuela, mi
And
hermano.
there is a depiction, there's
Hay una
something
foto.
in the museum here that's
Hay
very
en el
similar to what
museo
we saw.
una foto.
But what I want to try to say here is that
Lo que quiero
this is long
decir es
before communion. This was all before the gray alien became, a household name or in our everyday language. This is something that I sketched in school, actually. I had taped it on the chalkboard in my 4th grade class. And if you look at it today, it doesn't look that much different than what is depicted as a gray alien, if you will, or even on the cover of Communion. And so I always found that kind of interesting. So when Whitney came out with that book, I was pretty drawn to it. I was like, oh my God, it was one of those things. And to give you an idea of what I remember seeing, I was a child too, so I might have been more scared than I needed to be. Who knows? But the legs on it looked like bamboo with ring-colored, like wine-colored rings on it. The body looked like an elephant skin, if you will, and the head was about the size of a football with large eyes on it. And it reminded me of an ant. I was a kid, it reminded me of an ant. And so I, looking at, whatever in school, your history, whatever, science, right? And you run across the red fire ant with a translucent reddish head. And it just said, chills down my back. I mean, that was what, triggered me, And I lived in Florida for like 30 years. And when I saw bamboo, it reminded me of the body and so on and so forth. So I actually had someone make a depiction of it, a digital depiction. And it's really close to what I saw. Now, the odd thing is that the image I drew as a child had 5 limbs. So either, whether it had 6 or I don't remember. But it did remind me of an ant, and I'm guessing it had 6, limbs, not 4. But it was quite trying, it was difficult to make sense of that. And there really wasn't a lot of people you could talk to about us back in 1969, so it was difficult. But we had each other to communicate with and share our thoughts. But when it came down to how we were treated or how scared we were or the difficulty we went through, it was the on-world that was much more difficult than the off-world. Trying to survive and live in a small town where you're ostracized from the minute you mention it, And so anyway, that was pretty much, what we had to, deal with, and so with that, I would say that, again, what we saw was very different than what is common today. Yet, in some respects, not so much. And I imagine this too. So it was hard for me to make sense of it, hard to live with. Once it's out, right? You don't jump in a swimming pool with 1 foot, right? You're all in or you're not, right? We were all in, right? It was too late now. But the way we kind of made sense of this within ourselves, our close-knit circle, was that, we've had 5 global extinctions. And yet today we have 9 million species. And if they were all from a pair, they all would have died off. They all would have been inbred, been unhealthy, and they wouldn't have survived. They would have had to been in the right element, right? Polar bears didn't migrate from Africa, right? They never would have made it. So everything had to be very well planned. And to have 9 million healthy species, there would have been at least 6 males, 6 females of everything we have here today. So if we're all part of a bigger picture, then why is it so hard to say, look, we did see something different? There's plenty of life out there. We're all part of a bigger picture. There's a lot going on that we will never understand in our time. But we are part of it. We're all part of it, or we wouldn't be in this room today. And so I say that Earth is our galaxy's ark. The life was brought here to be preserved. Thanks.
Your encounter occurred in what you think was a government facility in a large building like the size of a shopping mall,
Yeah.
But not accessible to the average Joe there.
That's right. So my family and I remember being in a large, what reminded me of an airplane hangar. And matter of fact, these fluorescent tubes here, we remember seeing like a tube on the wall where it meant the ceiling had a tube of space, a tube of space, a tube of space. And where we were, again, was surrounded by manufacturing facilities working with NASA and the space race. So when you look at our car, ignition was off, not on. It was on when we parked, and when we came back to the car, we found ourselves back in the vehicle, the ignition was off, and my mother and grandmother were reversed. So we've always said there was a human element to this. And so with that, yeah, we're very elementary by design. It seemed very military, and the way that we were treated, and the harsh my arms were grabbed really hard, really harsh. And it was not what most people would describe. And we all came out of it within 5 minutes of each other. We didn't just come out of this all at once. And so that too has been very hard to make sense of. So I think we were in the wrong place at the wrong time, but at the same time, this wasn't a one and done. This activity has been constant in that area. We had an incident in 66, 67, 69, 74, and others in the area in 94 and 2012, to include cattle mutilations and corn that grows 17 feet now where this happened, and Karen's aware of that. She's aware of that too, right? You remember that? You want to show it, man. And I think the woman who found the crop circles was on that too, and to talk about the crop circles, the corn. Now all this is happening in this area, and you know, it's never stopped. It's like Skinwalker in Massachusetts, and I think we have some friends here from Massachusetts too. I think I've been to the park and probably seen some of that themselves. So anyway, anything more?
Very good. So I believe we have Travis, who was gone for 5 days, probably on orbit or even further out there. Then we've got Tom, who that incident lasted an hour, 2 hours?
3.
Or 3 hours or so, but on Earth, probably not off the ground.
Correct.
And then that leads us to Betty and Barney Hill with a hovering craft. Do you think